So, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. This week, we're continuing our conversation to explore parallels between video game design and data viz in terms of narrative structure and UX UI, and how we can apply some of these cross learnings to make data visualization a bit more fun. For our new video games audience who are tuning in this week, I'm Luis, a community leader in the Tableau space. I work in visual analytics at 2K Games where I create bespoke dashboards for our game titles. So this is the final part of a series of conversations that I had with Lucas, who is the CEO of a video game startup, Loreworx. And this week, we're going to talk about his visualization that he did on Clair Obscure. So over to you, Lucas.
Yeah, so I'm Lucas Olivieri. I'm the CEO and the creative director at Loreworx.
So let's shift gear a little bit because I'm very interested to learn how you created that video on Clair Obscure's visual guide to the expeditions. Have you finished with the game?
I didn't finish with the game, actually, but I know all the spoilers.
Okay, so before we go further into this conversation, this is a note that we're going into spoiler territory. If you have not finished the game and you don't want to be spoiled, then maybe this is where you hit pause on the podcast and come back later. If not, if you are okay with being spoiled, then yeah, by all means, stay with us.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story.
How far have you gone in the game?
In my gameplay, I started Act 2. I've watched all the cutscenes. I know the entire story, all of it. So
I think, in my opinion, Clair Obscure's narrative structure is one of the best, or if not the best, in maybe the past decade or so.
I totally agree.
It has so many layers to it. It just throws you a curveball with every act. They had the 3-act structure, which is widely used in plays, movies, and TV shows. So you have Act 1 where you talk about Gustav, and he dies at the end of Act 1. That scene was so heartbreaking. They probably primed us for that because back at the camp, you always have this conversation of Gustav and Mael just playing with the rocks and everything. And then the moment that scene played and you hear the loud thumping of the stick, it's like, oh shit, this is not going right. Something is gonna happen. And sure enough, stuff gets killed. And I think that is really impactful because it ties into all the conversations they had prior to this point in time. This interaction between Gustav and Luna before they found Mael. And Gustav was so traumatized when they landed at Duck Shores that whole team basically got massacred. He couldn't find Mael. His priority was going back to Lemire and just abandoning the whole mission. And Luna was like, this mission is about when one of us falls, we continue, not if, when. And that whole scene was so well done. It's a cinematic masterpiece by itself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
The videos that I make usually take 40, 50 hours of editing. So I have to make the research part of the video go by faster. I have somebody who helps me. He actually plays the game while I'm making the video and while I'm doing research with other means. One of the ways that I do research faster is I watch an actual playthrough on YouTube or something. And so I know everything there is to know about that story. What I think of the game is just like you said, Clair Obscure doesn't have the greatest gameplay ever, doesn't have the greatest UX ever, not the greatest interface ever. However, it probably has one of the best worlds and one of the best narratives ever put in the video game. And the characters are obviously part of that too. I think that holds more weight than most other things in an RPG because it's like watching a movie. If the script of the movie is a masterpiece, you are going to overlook the bad actor, the bad fight choreography. And that's what this is. The narrative is an absolute masterpiece. Reminds me a little bit of Knights of the Old Republic. And the world building is just sensational. I think Baldur's Gate 3 has an incredible story, but I would say it's more due to the characters than the actual narrative itself. This one has a narrative that is just absolutely 10 out of 10, perfection, similar to the first Matrix. Just incredible world building and story. Then probably the best cutscene, cinematic direction I have seen in the game, and I think That is what's going to win this the Game of the Year award.
What are your favorite moments from the game, like in terms of cutscenes?
I mean, you mentioned one of them. The Gustav death is so impactful, not just in terms of the story, but because as a player, you have invested in that. You just lost your character. Obviously, man, the ending is just, some people don't like it. The whole thing that this is part of a world that is being painted. My best friend doesn't like it. He thinks it makes everything unimportant. I think it's genius. It's like the Matrix in that scene when he goes and he meets the architect with all of the versions of the ones. Is genius writing. I don't know, man. It's very hard to choose because all of them are so well done. And I'm a person that doesn't like depth of field in games. They pull focus like Quentin Tarantino. This is not hyperbole in their cutscenes. The way they mix it with the noir, black and white, the level of creativity is just absolutely genius in this game. The journal is incredible. The lore is incredible. The expedition bodies that you find as you adventure. You know, I started trying to see if they have number on the body, on the arm. They didn't. I was like, this developer cutting a little bit of a corner here. I stopped looking after 50 corpses and no number. But you see how they die, right? They have these remnants of a battle. It's just so well done.
The music in the game.
Oh, God, yes. Phenomenal.
And the thing is, if you notice, like some parts of the lyrics change depending on where you are in the story. There's very subtle changes. I guess for the French gamers, they probably pick that up a lot faster than us. I had to read through like Reddit threads and listen to the music again. There's a really cool Easter egg that built into the game. And it's just amazing how much the developers have thought about this whole thematic design of the game.
I believe they found the composer on SoundCloud. You know, I watched this documentary on YouTube, the making of Clair Obscure or whatever. It was just incredible. The people that they found, the writer they found on some message board. I don't know if it was Reddit, but it was just incredible. The score in this game is absolutely impeccable. It really is. Some people might not like it because it is different. It is so risky, and I think it pays off really well. And I'm a person that I turn off music in my RPGs because I think that music is generally not immersive for these RPGs, and I want to be immersed. And when I have music on, it's almost feel like my character has AirPods on. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I could not turn this music off. Not for Clair Obscure. I couldn't do it.
I think the closest any other game had to this is probably One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII. But that was like 1997.
The world design is incredible. When you are exploring, your mouth is open a lot of times because, I don't know, you might see some Ferris wheel that is broken, or you are in an ocean, but the ocean is not water and things are flying instead of swimming. It's crazy. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland. And so every time you're looking at something, it's just so creative. And you have the battle system, which has the quick time events. A lot of players don't like quick time events, but I think they do it well.
One of my favorite games growing up is Legend of Dragoon and Shadow Hearts. Both these games have QTE. They were the QTE before QTE became popular. In Legend of Dragoon, every character had an arsenal of 5 or 6 different combo attacks. And in order for you to execute that, you have to hit the buttons in the right order. So it could be like, ta, 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 ta. Another combo attack could be an entirely different sequence and rhythm. And Shadow Hearts had that little circular thing, similar to how Clair does it. It has a ring system where you have a red portion, a yellow, and a green. So obviously, if you hit the green, which is much smaller in comparison with the rest of the radiant, you get a critical hit or you get like more damage and stuff like that. So I think they paid homage to all these old games that laid the foundation for modern game. For turn-based games, this genre has specifically suffered for a long time for not having any evolution in the game system. But Clair Obscure basically just smashed it.
Absolutely. This is not Pokemon Red and Blue. This is very, very different. It's not click here, attack here. you are more involved. And again, they do such a fantastic job with the animations and the transitions inside of combat. And then all the character systems are so different. Again, I don't think it's the greatest battle system ever. It's not a perfect game, but there is no such thing as a perfect game. This game does narrative and cinematics so incredibly well that I just don't see a different game winning Game of the Year. So far, there are 3 games that I hear being mentioned in the conversation. It's Clair Obscure, Split Fiction, and KCD2, which was my number 1 game until I played Clair Obscure.
So in terms of getting that data points, how did you go about doing that? I suppose that you had to read every single one of the journals in the game. And I know that you are not a fan of games having no maps, and Clair Obscure doesn't have any map. Your visual had that centerpiece of the monolith and basically the different expedition ranges, how far they were from center.
Right. Because the game took off and people really liked it, all of these other sites started making interactable maps. And so it was actually very easy because all I needed to do was find one of these interactable maps with the journal locations. And then because I read all of the journals, I knew that, for instance, Expedition 60, the journal location is not where the expedition ended. When I had that information, I then took a screenshot of the world map that from these websites. I made it super high res so I could use it in a video. And then I just drew 5 lines, 5 circles coming from the monolith that had the same distance between the arcs. Arbitrary because there was no unit of distance or anything like that for me to work with. It was just deciding what kind of presentation would look the best on the video, because this wasn't scientific. I'm not trying to publish a paper on this thing. I want to make a video that is as entertaining as possible. And so I thought that the coolest way to visualize this and to present this data would be in a radar, not unlike a radar that you would have on your submarine, if you have a submarine. That was the idea. And then just general stuff. Okay, I'm going to use a radar. How many slices am I going to have? It has to be odd numbered because odd number slices on the radar is just going to be much more interesting to look at than if it was even, because then you would just have 2 same sized little slices on top and then 2 of the same on the bottom. So with 5 different slices representing 8 expeditions each, I ended up with a radar that looked really cool with circles that emanated from the center. And then after that, it was just make it look good. So I made it look like Clair Obscure with the gold stuff. But I also fed all of the journal entries into ChatGPT. These are the 5 different categories of how expeditions ended. It was mid-journeys, but then nothing major came out of it. That was blue. And then orange was what ended because they got in a fight or there was some kind of conflict with physical barrier or something like that. Yellow was good contributions to the future expeditions, regardless of how it ended. Red was some kind of an internal conflict, like a mutiny or inside of the expedition itself. And then purple was some kind of a political conflict. So wanting to go against the council in Lumiere. That was purple. And then I told ChatGPT, here are the 5 categories. Go through the text document that I just gave you and assign categories to these expeditions. Then also pick out the ones that are your favorite. And so it just vomited this information, which I obviously had to double check because you have to double check everything AI does, but it does help a lot. But I also needed to check the rest of the game because the game is not just journals. I found the video on YouTube that was all of the cutscenes and all of the dialogue in the game. That was 8 hours long. I also got this story explainer video that was a bit over 1 hour, and I auto-generated the transcript of both those videos, put the transcript in a text file, feed it into GPT, and I also told GPT that, hey, it's auto-generated. There can be mistakes. So that's kind of how I was able to put them all in the radar graph. After I had these points, I try to make my life as easy as possible. Obviously, I also played the game because I feel like I need to play the game to get a feel for it. But because our channel is still small, I don't get these game keys a week before release. So it's not like I can beat the game and then work on a 40-hour edit of a video. And I knew this would get views because on YouTube, you either make the videos you want to make or you make the videos that people want to watch. It's different. Sometimes they meet in the middle and it's beautiful, but a lot of times they don't. So I knew that people were searching for Clair Obscure Expedition 33 story, right? Because the narrative is so great. And the first thing that I asked myself when I heard the title of the game was, okay, Expedition 33, what happened to the other expeditions? And so that was the process in this video.
That's a lengthy process, but I think it's really well done. What tool do you use to create the visualization?
Photoshop is my thing. I actually tried to have ChatGPT make it because it offered. I love it when AI offers stuff. I always say, yeah, why not? Just give it a
Why
shot.
not?
But I never got it right. It would create these radar graphs with the expedition and they would look like a spiral. I was like, that's not interesting. The plotted X's would look like a spiral. And to pad the video a little bit, by the way, I don't like padding videos. I like leaving people wanting more. But when you pad a video with something that is interesting, I think it's worth it. And so I can plot this thing according to the arbitrary distance rings that I made, but then I can have the radar change the dots to account for the actual route that Expedition 33 takes. So because you could veer off to the right and you can be like a snake. It's not a straight shot to the monolith. There's one expedition, I think it's Expedition 48, that got on Esquire and flew all the way to the right. It is totally, completely off course. And so they would have to theoretically fly back to then go to the monolith. I think it made for an interesting video. And if I'm going to talk about 10 expeditions, it's important to change the presentation of every single one of them so that it's not the same thing over and over again. I had a comment that said, oh, you should have done it for all expeditions. Like, you would not watch that. I don't have 40 different ways to show this in the video. I can't make things interesting 40 different times.
I think that is also the limitation of the law in the game. The journals are just like one-off from each expedition. There's not much apart from there. There's no like grand library or something. So a lot of it leaves to our own imagination. That's the most difficult part, because I was also exploring doing a data visualization on Clair Obscure. I thought about counting the number of dead bodies across the entire game, but I just heard that you counted 50 and gave up. I was like, okay, maybe I'll not go that route.
Well, I didn't count the bodies. I was looking at their arms to see if they had the expedition number. I gave up because I couldn't find the expedition number on the armbands.
I gave up after a particular part in the game where one of the expeditions, they knew it was a losing battle against one of the Exons, and all of them laid flat to form a bridge for the future expedition. Yeah. So there's no way I could possibly count the bodies because it's all meshed up together.
Plus, man, that sounds like one of these YouTube challenges, you know, like I counted all the bodies. Oh my gosh, that's so long. And I know a thing or two about this stuff because, like, before I created the Loreworx channel, I still have it, the Uni Chaos like channel, and it was about doing these YouTuber challenges. I got to answer a trivia question from the game, and then I would show the game with the trivia question. If I got it right, I would get a buff, an upgrade to my comfort, if you will. But if I got it wrong, I would also get a debuff. It would make my life harder, right? So I did things like drink a gallon of water using chopsticks. I counted grains of sand. And this to me sounds like one of these challenges, the counting of the expedition bodies. It would take a long time.
It would take a while. So having read all the journals, who is your favorite expedition team?
Oh, that's easy. But everyone answers this. 60 is ridiculous. You know, they turned on God mode and they played the game. I imagine like these 59-year-olds that are all like the cast of Expendables.
All of them look like the Rock.
Yeah, like all of these action heroes. That's what the Expedition 60 is. And also like naked. Yeah, you know, because they don't like armor. They don't like clothes. They're like, our bodies are our monuments or whatever. You know,
for the audience listening to this, Expedition 60 was really interesting because the monolith is where the paintress sits, and there's a barrier that goes around the monolith, and nobody gets through that So if you try to force your way through that, you get Gomaj, which is a way of saying that you erase out of existence. And Expedition 60 basically just through brute force alone force their way through the barrier to get to the patrons.
And they were like, this barrier tickles me. Then they found out something very major at the monolith and sent a messenger back to the city to warn the future expeditions. And this 59-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Phelps, swam all the way back and almost made it to the city. But the Gomaj, which is what happens when the number on the monolith flips from like 60 to 59, and then everyone who is 59 turns into dust, like Thanos. He didn't make it before this thing flipped from 60 to 59. So he disappeared. He died before he made it back to the city. But just absolute badass expedition, never cared about anything. And of course, the messenger that wrote the journal, I love that they have the voiceovers. So they have the narration. And this guy's name is William. So I immediately think of William the Conqueror, King of England. It's so great. That is my favorite one.
I think that is everyone's favorite.
Yeah. Again, it's the boring answer, you know? I love the journal that says, oh, I ate mushrooms and I'm not invincible.
Gets me.
I love that one. I think it was SDA, right? Like, well, you gave me this stupid mushroom and now I'm dying. Don't be sad, but I'm not immortal. That was a
Not
good
like
one.
that was a good one.
And I'm not usually a person that reads all of the books, like the Skyrim books that you lose and stuff.
man.
Like the codex entries, I just ignore all that crap usually. But with this game, especially because the journal is usually in some place where a battle occurred or something interesting helps tell the story. And so you're more intrigued to listen to that journal. It's just fantastic.
So I suppose this is your first foray into creating the data visualization piece.
No, well, not really. Because of the game that we're making, our startup, I have a database of trivia questions, more than 8,000 of them, that is region based as well. And so different question levels, different categories, subcategories. And I created all of the questions for the game because all of them have to be worded so that you can read them in less than 2 seconds. That's how a trivia game can mix with action. You have to be able to answer in less than 10 seconds. And so I created this giant database, and it's just an enormous spreadsheet. I needed to create a dashboard for it inside of Google Sheets. And so I have a dashboard with just different sections. And I also had to make a pitch deck for our company too. Love the visual stuff, but because I know Photoshop so well, I tend to use Photoshop for these things.
So this is just me being a community leader in the Tableau space. Download Tableau Public. It's a free version, and you can connect it directly to your Google Sheets. It's really one of the easiest data visualization tools there. So you can just drag and drop practically anything within seconds to build anything you want. Obviously, you'll spend a lot more time customizing everything, but if you're looking to analyze data, Tableau does it really, really well. So yeah, that's my pitch to you.
No, I mean, I saw some of the examples on your LinkedIn. I thought it looked great. You know, like, oh, press a button here and then the lightsaber changes color. It looked really cool. So it's awesome that I'm hearing about this for the first time meeting you. I'll look at it definitely because I like these reports.
I'm glad I can learn a lot of stuff from you, and you can also learn stuff from me. I think that's the marvel of meeting someone new. We wouldn't have had this conversation if I didn't reach out to you as well. So I'm really glad that we had this almost 2 hours conversation on all.
That didn't feel like it, man.
Didn't feel like it. I know.
Yeah, I get very passionate when I talk about this stuff, so I apologize. It got long and nerdy, but I consider myself like a lifetime learner, so I just love learning new things and meeting new people, especially in the game industry, you know, because we're all nerds. So it's great meeting you, man. Great nerding out about the Clair Obscure. The game really deserves all of the love that it's getting.
So thank you again, Lucas, for spending time with us. I hope everyone learned a lot from this. I've definitely learned a lot from Lucas, and we'll see everyone at the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you very much.